Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy, and I'm here with Shane. And in today's video, we have a really urgent, a very important report we wanted to put together. It's a decent amount of information, but all of this information is extremely important because I feel like with this Cybertruck explosion, terrorist, if you want to say, attack, it's one of the best or most solid cases to prove that the deep state is trying to create discord within the American public between left and right. And with perfect timing, this happened on the first 5 days before Trump's confirmation, which is today, the 6th of January. So this all rolled out because Whistleblower, through a few steps, was able to get information out to the Shawn Ryan show. Shawn Ryan's an ex Navy SEAL, and he has one of the most popular podcasts and YouTube channels right now. And the information that he presented actually beat the mainstream narrative. And so we're going to compare the two. And some really good information came out last night on X during a 2-hour live. So we're going to sum that up, give you guys what you really need to know. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed, please do so before you leave, and like, comment, and please share this video so we can let people know what's really going on behind the scenes, because this story is really, really important. And if we could keep this story alive, it could really have a big impact on the horrible events that we've been seeing this year, and I guess for some time now. So I'm going to let Shane start off with the kind of the beginning. I will link Shawn's interview in the description so you can hear from them yourself. But yeah, Matt Shoemate is
Sam.
Sam Shoemate. So there's a lot of names here. Sam Shoemate is the guy that Shawn interviewed, and he has a big IG platform where he takes like military members, whistleblower accounts, and tries to make them public. And so he's kind of like aiding whistleblowers and trying to expose the truth. So I'll let Shane go through that process.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. So this all started when the alleged Cybertruck bomber, Matt Leibelsberger, sent an email to Sam Shoemate days prior to the actual bombing. And in the email, I'll show it here. He claims that he claims that the drones are actually operational use of gravitic propulsion systems that are presently being used by China and the US. I kind of doubt the China angle, but he's claiming that this is, hidden technology that's been kept from the public, and that this could be a mutually assured destruction situation. He also claims that there was allegations in 2019 in Afghanistan of alleged war crimes as well that the UN had swept under the rug. Now, Sam Shoemate brought this to the attention of the Shawn Ryan show, and Shawn Ryan did an emergency broadcast. He got this out as soon as possible, and he was really nervous about it. But, they put this email out, and it kind of went viral, and it actually got more traction ahead of the official story, and that might be kind of why Shawn's in trouble now. So I will come back to this email in just a minute. But so Sam Shoemate was originally contacted by Matt Leibelsberger on an Instagram account. Now, this is a similar message that Matt also sent to Shawn Ryan. However, Sam deleted the original message where he was contacted by Matt. Now, after making initial contact with Matt, Sam and Matt exchanged emails on Proton Mail. Now, this is an actual screenshot from his telephone that shows the actual email. I know there was a lot of controversy over the original email that was shown on the Shawn Ryan show because it looks like there's spell check with some of the words, and you can see the cursor. So this is clearly in draft or edit mode. And a lot of people had claimed that the email was fake based on that. But what actually happened was the Shawn Ryan show took the original email and copy pasted it into Apple Notes where they could screenshot it better. And that's why it appears the way it does. However, Matt posted this thread to prove that, this is a real email that was on his phone. And it started out, basically with Matt, saying he's going to contact him and he wants, Fox News contact as well as Shawn Ryan's show, and even Hegseth would be good too. Then further in the thread, he releases this disclosure to Sam where he says, in case I do not make it to my decision point or onto the Mexico border, I'm sending this now. Please do not release this until 1 January and keep my identity private until then. So he claims he's not under duress or hostile influence or control. He gives his first car as a sort of verification. But what he goes on to say is what we have been seeing with drones is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems. Now, he claims that, these are widely used by the United States, although kept secret, and now China also has them, and which implies a sort of arms race with China. Now, I do kind of doubt that angle to a certain extent, but, I might get into that later. So anyway, so he posted the original emails, and he also goes on to say that his Signal chat thread with Matt Leibelsberger had the safety number changed. Now, this safety number was changed after the explosion, either on the 1st or the 2nd. Now, a safety number on Signal would only change if the owner of the account moved it to a new device, or if someone who was unauthorized accessed that device and didn't know the safety number. So I'm thinking what happened here is most likely the authorities got into the device and they didn't know the safety number. So when they accessed the messages, it changed the safety number, which alerted all of Matt's contacts, including Sam. But there was also another Green Beret who corroborates this with another screenshot that he also shows that Matt's safety number with him was also changed. And so I do think that that's most likely a sign that the authorities had accessed the device, although there's some fringe, alternative explanations out there that think that that's evidence that Matt is still alive. I think it's most likely that's what happened when the authorities accessed the phone. It didn't know the safety number. All right. So another thing that I wanted to point out is that not only does the Signal account match that was previously used by Matt, but so does the Proton mail actually match that was used by Matt Leibelsberger. So, that is just further confirmation that it was from his device, not necessarily that it was from him, but it was from his device.
And it
Now,
was an
another
Android.
thing, yes,
Sorry.
it was an Android device. Yeah.
It's going to come
in
up.
this photo here, yeah, you can see in the red box that it says sent from Proton Mail for Android. So the original email thread was started from an Android device, and that'll be relevant here shortly. So another thing that Sam Shoemate posted just to prove the validity of the email was the extended message header information. Now, a lot of internet hacker sleuths use this information to actually prove that it was a real email that was sent internally from one Proton account to another. So that verifies that it was a real email. And then during the interview, Shawn Ryan actually discovered, or Shawn Ryan's producer actually discovered, that they too also received an email from Matt Leibelsberger. However, they didn't notice it right away until they went back and looked during the show. So that confirms that the emails are actually real. They were sent from Matt Leibelsberger's device. Now, it's up for speculation whether it was Matt himself or someone else who was in control of the device. But until we know otherwise, we'll assume at this point that it was probably Matt Leibelsberger that sent those messages.
And then I'll give a little information for those who are new to this story. Matt Leibelsberger is a active Green Beret, right? But there was talk that he might be moving, but he was newly trained on like the drone program, but he was an active member. He wasn't retired or anything like that.
Yeah, so Matt Tardio is a retired Green Beret that actually did serve with Matt Leibelsberger, and he claims that Matt only recently, in like October or November, actually completed his UAS training, which is unmanned aerial systems. And so it's unlikely that he had the clearance that he claimed, being USAP, which is unacknowledged special access programs, and that he had a TSSCI clearance. It's a little bit unlikely for someone who's basically a rookie in that field. So it does kind of throw his credentials into question. However, it doesn't necessarily negate the validity of the information that he's trying to convey. So anyway, I guess that will bring us to the conversation that Shawn Ryan had with Tim Kennedy, and then ultimately the PAO officer. So,
Okay.
did you want to go into the Tim
Yeah,
Kennedy
I
piece?
can walk through that and you can show the visuals when I get there. So Tim Kennedy, if you're kind of following the UFO story or you follow a lot of the military correspondence, Tim Kennedy is an active Green Beret. And to me, every time I see him talk, I just automatically discredit what he says because I feel like he's like the talking head of the Green Berets. But I personally don't trust what he said, and he contacted Shawn Ryan before they did this interview. I think he got wind of that and said you need to contact a guy named Dave Butler, who is like the PR representative for the Army, definitely for the Green Berets, but I think he's in charge of the Army. The Green Berets are the special forces of the Army, is my understanding. And so this information has just been released from there's a man named Tim Parlator who was an ex-military attorney for the Shawn Ryan show. So he got on the phone with Shawn and Dave Butler, and he said that, and this is coming from him, he said that the conversation between all right, so the conversation between Dave Butler, Tim, and Shawn was mainly about how um, Dave didn't want the impression that the Army just kind of uses up their guys and spits them out. He was more concerned about the image that the story was going to give his agency. And even Tim said that was very unusual. He also, and this is something we haven't gotten to, but he also says that it was very odd that the officials went to Matt's family to get DNA from his family members because that was unnecessary. And they wanted to, they kind of said, like, off the record, the DNA between Matt and his son don't match, implying that there might have been some sort of reveal that this new baby was not his. Later on, that's debunked, but I thought that was really interesting that the representative for the Army was not really concerned so much about what happened here. They were more concerned about the image that they wanted to represent.
Yeah, they're
Um,
trying to inject their version of a motive. It turns out that Dave Butler, the public affairs officer from the Army, was the one who tried to inject that narrative of the DNA of his son not matching his as a possible motive, which was later debunked by the sheriff of LVMPD.
right. And then more recently, they're trying to spin this that he was unhinged and he was on psych meds, and that was the motive for this explosion that he carried out. I strongly disagree with that, but we can't prove that. There are people saying that he was very well liked and he had a great family, and then there are some that are saying that his ex-wife didn't, I think ended the relationship, and that he was a cheater, right? And that she had basically ended the relationship. But I don't know exactly. Maybe some people got to her. I don't know for sure. Also, she said that he had a brain injury, which it could be the case. Um, so,
Right, but they've tried to use several different things as a possible motive. So they've thrown out the idea that he was off his meds, that he had a brain injury, that his wife wanted to leave, that the child wasn't his. They're coming up with everything that they can to try to get the public to believe something other than what likely happened.
right. And I feel like this is a narrative that they've used before with the other attack, the massive shooting that happened in Vegas in 2018. That was what they said this man was experiencing, although that is extremely unlikely that that was what actually happened. Do you want me to go into the sheriff press conference that they held a couple days ago?
Sure. I was just going to mention something that relates to your previous point that
Mhm.
Kyle, who was on the live with Shawn Ryan last night, he had mentioned that the FBI didn't even know who Shawn Ryan was, that they didn't know what a VBID was, and that they're very out of touch.
Okay, and then Kyle Serra, I want to make sure people understand why he's involved. He resigned as a Green Beret because of certain things he was trying to bring forward. I guess the agency didn't like that, but he wanted to help this story get to the FBI. They did try to use the proper channels before they went public. And so he didn't want just some low-level analyst to get this story. So he found someone that he trusted. And it was just like, this was really revealing for me personally to understand how these agencies worked. He said, again, he didn't know what the email was about. He didn't understand how a podcast worked, and he didn't know what a VBED was, which is the name for that explosion that was in the truck. And that he was very clear that he said the FBI is a one-way street. They take in information and then usually don't hear from them. And it just seems like there's a very high level of incompetence, because it doesn't seem like they really have to answer to anyone. So the fact that they didn't know about the email and they didn't know how a podcast worked really floored me. For someone at
so
that
not
level.
only are they not only is the FBI a one-way street, but they're kind of a one-trick pony when it comes to slapping these labels on these extremists and giving the reasons, so they're trying to, we hear this all the time. He acted alone, he had mental problems, he had family problems, all this kind of thing. They try to use that every single time, and it's because they're not creative enough to come up with something better.
Yeah, and I don't think they realize that people are noticing that these stories keep repeating themselves. It's highly unlikely that all of these incidences are from the same cause. Okay. And then, so now we want to go on to the Las Vegas sheriff.
Yeah, so the Las Vegas Metro Police Department did a press briefing along with, Special Agent Spencer Evans, who's the special agent in charge of Las Vegas. They did a press briefing where they went over the information that they had so far. So some of this information includes the data from the Cybertruck, which includes not just the Cybertruck video, but also the GPS coordinates and the time, so they can retrace his route that he took from Denver to Las Vegas. They also show the wallet that was found on the back seat. And this is a close-up of the wallet. And this is the wallet and its contents. You can see that the outside of the wallet was relatively damaged, but the cards and the pictures inside the wallet seem to be still intact. And the Army ID was actually found also on the back seat, just a few inches from the wallet, very conveniently. And his passport, of all things, was also found, and it only has like a slight scorch mark on the spine there, as if someone maybe took a lighter to it before they found it in the truck bed. So this is actually a police crime evidence photo of where the passport was found. Now, this is in the back of the truck, in the truck bed, with all the explosives and the fuel and so forth. And so the fact that the passport only suffered this much damage is a little bit suspicious. I think we've seen passports that can survive lots of things. We've seen this in the past where passports are relatively indestructible.
Right. Well, in the other attack that happened in New York, the so-called hijackers' passports were found pretty quickly in the rubble, where they said the plane couldn't survive, but their passports did and were found.
Right.
That reminded me of that.
To find the passport in such condition in the location that they found it, to me, it almost looks as if it was planted evidence. But
and they also initially said that his body was burned beyond recognition. That's initially what they said, and they changed it. So how does a body completely get burned and documents that are necessary for identification survive? Yeah, that was really unusual. And also,
there's another. Go ahead.
Sorry, real quick. The picture that he had in his wallet shows his tattoo, which they also used to identify him, which is very convenient.
Yeah, so that's a tiger tattoo on his arm, and then he had another tattoo on his stomach. I'm not going to show the police evidence because YouTube would probably label that as graphic or something. But they do show his tattoos, which they had sent to the current wife. She verified that those were his tattoos. They also had the DNA evidence that was matched to him. They also had matched the dental records. And I guess for whatever reason, they took family member DNA, which did also match, which disproves what the
Tim.
Army PAO said, Dave Butler, actually. So that actually, it counters the statement that was made by the Army PAO. So it sounds like the Army is trying to put out a false story right off the bat just to get people believing whatever. All right. Now, speaking of strange evidence, so this phone was found on the seat. I believe this might be the back seat where they also found the wallet. It could be the front passenger seat. I'm not really sure. But they said they found 2 phones and a laptop and various other things. But the phone that they had recovered the data from was an iPhone, of all things. Now, this is like an iPhone 12 or newer. And this is the phone that they allegedly recovered the data from. Now, this data includes 2 letters that were kind of interpreted as manifestos. Now, this is the long version of the manifesto. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but he talks about how we're under threat from, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. He doesn't mention the drone technology at all in this one, but he does go into some, I guess you could say, right-wing talking points like DEI and so forth. But then there's another short version of the letter that was on this phone that's almost like a call to action. And it's kind of concerning because he's encouraging service members, veterans, all Americans, and militias to try to take over DC and get rid of the Democrats. He even does call it a purge. Now, to me, this sounds like right-wing talking points that even on the live last night during the Shawn Ryan live, one of the guests had said they look like different writers, like they're not the same guy. The language is used differently in each of those. So in the email that was sent to Sam, it sounds like someone who actually has experience with, being a Green Beret and having those kind of, that kind of knowledge. And he also knew about what happened in Afghanistan in 2019. But then these letters that were being pushed out by the mainstream media, it almost looks like he said bad AI right-wing talking points. And
Was
if you
that
ask me,
Tardio?
that was
Tim Tardio?
I didn't write down who that was. I'm not sure if it was Tardio
Okay. Well, there
or
was one
another
of them,
one.
I think that is Tardio, who knew him personally, and they asked if this
Mhm.
was something representative of his views, and he said no. He wasn't like a
Right.
super right-wing MAGA, let's get rid of the
Yeah.
Democrats. He didn't feel like that was something representative of who he was as a person. And he thought it
Right.
was fake. Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that's Tim Tardio.
It might be. I didn't write down who had
Yeah.
actually said that,
It
but he
was
did
someone that
say
worked with him that knew
that. Right. The
person.
2 different versions, the one that were sent to Sam and the ones that were found on the iPhone, are completely different versions. He says they sound like they're from different people. And the one that was put out by the media and the FBI seems to be just a conglomeration of right-wing talking points that could have been made by AI. And if you ask me, that's exactly what the media wants to put out to try to fan the flames of, insurrection or civil war. They want to polarize the left versus the right. And I think this just they're trying to get more of an excuse to, label American citizens as potential domestic terrorists. And if they're trying to rile up the right wing and get them to do something that they can use as an excuse. All
Oh,
right. And so
sorry, did I?
then,
Yeah,
no,
Matt
that's fine. We
Tardio.
can go ahead and move on to this one next. So Matt Tardio, just today, he posted this. What's more believable? An experienced Green Beret puts fireworks and fuel in the back of a rented truck in an attempt to blow the whistle on gravitic propulsion systems and war crimes, or he was set up to get MAGA extremists listed as domestic terror organizations. So I believe that it's most likely the second one, but it's not mutually exclusive with the first one. I think it could be and probably is both of these things. So yeah, that's a good nuance to actually point out, is that it's not one or the other. These are not mutually exclusive. It could be both. Although I do want people to realize that these talking points, these alleged manifesto that's being put out by the FBI, is most likely a setup to make MAGA extremists look like domestic terrorists.
And that is to me, the most important message that I wanted to give is that behind the scenes, this is what's fueling this hate and these, the insurrection that happened, and, justification for that. And so I really wanted to let people know that, this is being forced on us. And what makes me just so proud of this story is that a podcaster came out and beat the MSM to this, to really shed light on the truth. And if this isn't obvious to you, I don't know what is, but that this was a setup. There are people that are going so far as to say that he was MK Ultra and this was all from the beginning. I don't know, but it could have happened when they got word of what he was going to do and then covered it up with this story to further their narrative. But he might have been, picked from the beginning to do this. There's a good chance that that is the case. Also, Matt Tardio, who is a personal friend, I can't keep track of their names.
Matt Tardio.
Matt
Of
Tardio,
Matt Leibelsberger. He served
with
him. Yeah.
Right. He was a personal friend of his. He thinks that he is still alive and that he was abducted by the authorities, which would be nice if he was.
Yeah. So Matt Tardio has his own podcast, and on his podcast, he had said near the end of his own personal podcast that he gave his thoughts and opinions. And he said that he thinks that Matt Leibelsberger was probably abducted, and he's probably either still being held or maybe dead. But he thinks that he was abducted and this whole thing was staged.
Yeah, for this. But what they didn't realize is that a podcast was going to beat them to the truth. But then you have to wonder who or what agency made those emails and signal messages. It was probably from Matt, at least the signal messages, unless someone took over all of his devices. But I also believe he was in an active signal group with the fellow Green Berets, and he was acting like himself.
Yeah.
So I think he was in possession of his device when he was making these messages and emails were going out.
Yeah. One final thing. Did I actually point out the fact that he was still alive in the CNN video? Okay, so CNN released this angle of the bombing, and this is one of the last frames, a split second before the bomb actually exploded. Now, we're not going to share the video here because it might be considered graphic to YouTube, but this is the last frame that was shown before the bomb exploded, and you can see in the video that he turns his head, and he turns his head rather slowly, actually, right before the bomb goes off. And I did slow it down, and I watched the windows actually bulged out. Even the passenger window was bulged out by the explosion. And it doesn't look like there was a gun or a bullet or anything like that happened. Now, the police claim that he actually, took his own life with the gun at the exact same time as the bomb went off. The sheriff said that they happened simultaneously. And I do find that unlikely, although there are some scenarios where it could potentially be possible. But when you see the CNN video, which I will link below, you're going to see that there is no gun and there is no gunshot.
And they claim they found a gun, but they didn't actually show it in evidence. Right?
They did actually, I believe so I'm going to also link the press briefing that they gave. They did show a picture of a gun that they said was his. It was a 50 caliber Desert Eagle. And they said that was the gun that was used to take his life. However, the CNN video kind of contradicts that.
Right. Yeah. So I think the biggest, pieces of evidence, the email and the signal messages. But again, like this, what survived is just too convenient to be true. His multiple IDs, his cards, and a picture of himself with his tattoo. Like, I don't know. To me, that just makes him look so shady. And another thing that I picked up from the live that they did last night is that the different agencies don't seem to be coordinating very well. Like the sheriff will say one thing and Like the FBI doesn't even, at the time, didn't even seem to be very aware of what was going on. I don't know, would you agree?
I would agree, and that just reminds me of one really sensational piece of evidence that I almost forgot. So the sheriff had actually said that on the phone they found, so like Matt Leibelsberger was originally messaging with an Android phone, but they had found an iPhone. But he said on this iPhone, in addition to the 2 letters, was another note document that was titled surveillance log. And that surveillance log contained a list of all of Matt Leibelsberger's activities, every move he's made for the last 10 days leading up to the explosion. Now, if Matt Leibelsberger was keeping a journal of his own movements and actions, why would he call it a surveillance log? And to me, that just even further calls into question the validity of the evidence of the iPhone that was found.
Also, Matt Leifensberger also said that he was being followed. He believed the
Yes.
FBI or
Yeah.
something
So
was
all of
following
this
him.
corroborates.
Why would he be recording all of his movements in an electronic document that he knows could be accessed by those agencies? I just thought it was
Yeah.
weird. And also the fact that the sheriff and the FBI are releasing this info so soon. You know, this is still an active investigation. They put this out literally the day after the Shawn Ryan podcast came out. I don't know if they realized they would have to do it so soon. So I think they were rushed as well. And they are aware about the podcast. A couple of the journalists in the press conference asked if they were aware of it, and they said they kind of tried to avoid it, but they said yes, they do know about it. They just haven't verified it, saying that they haven't really worked on much of it
They
because they
hadn't
know it's
verified it.
probably true.
Yeah, but the FBI special agent in charge of Las Vegas, Spencer Evans, he did say that it's most likely strong evidence that the original email sent from Matthew Leibelsberger to Sam Shoemate was real.
So Shane, what do you think really happened? I know we don't have evidence for everything, but do you think this was planned, you know, CIA operative from the beginning, they picked him out, or do you think he acted alone until a little later?
Well, I believe he probably thinks he acted alone, but a lot of MK Ultra subjects probably have that perception. However, that does allow it to appear as if it was like, you know, a lone terrorist who acted on his own while he was still, you know, set up by a plan that was in motion prior to that. So I don't think they just spun this after the fact. I think it was a plan that had been planned ahead of time, not just by him, although he probably had no idea that he was part of a much bigger plan to spin it the way that they're doing. And I do think that that does have some of the hallmarks of MK Ultra.
Right, but maybe the people who put him through this mind control didn't anticipate that he would be making these other emails and communications. Maybe they couldn't
If it
foresee
was him that made them, I mean, those still could be planted evidence. You never know. It's hard to say. We still can't verify that he was in control of his device the whole time, or that his device wasn't cloned, or something else.
Right. So you think maybe someone else was trying to get that information using his identity, knowing that what was going to happen? Because I do feel like something else I want to point out is I think a lot of people that normally would just go along with the mainstream narrative are doing the right thing. They're just, you know, they want to do the right thing regardless of how it affects their life or, you know, how it affects their safety. I do feel like that is a lot more prevalent versus before. You know, people are willing to risk their life, their careers, and just, you know, come out and just say what they want to say, you know?
I do think that the email that was sent to Sam Shoemate was most likely sent from Matthew Leibelsberger himself. However, it does not exclude the possibility that he was part of an MK Ultra program and that this could have also been planned around him without his knowledge. So it's possible that, you know, at least the letters on the iPhone could be part of a really large psy-op. But I'm still open to the possibility that the email itself that Matthew sent to Sam could also be part of the psy-op. However, you know, I mean, we have to be as skeptical as possible about, you know, information until we can verify it. And so this is obviously a psyop on the level of the material that was found on the iPhone, the MAGA manifesto. To me, that's all fake. It's all psyop, and I don't think Matthew wrote those letters. And I do think he wrote the email to Sam. However, he could also be, MK Ultra and part of a much larger psyop.
Or maybe they're competing factions within MK Ultra.
That's also a possibility. So when it comes to this, deep state cabal, they are different factions working together, and ultimately, when it comes down to it, they will serve their own faction's interest. So it's hard to say, where these division lines have been drawn within the compartments of the deep state.
Like a rogue agent that was supposed to be going on with the plan, but didn't agree with the results, or what they were going for.
Yeah.
I don't know. I tend to look at things like that just because of I studied a lot of like wars, and what you will see often is that like when you get to the top, a lot of those leaders or countries will often split and disagree and kind of go against each other's original plans.
Yeah.
But
It is probably a globalist faction that contains it's a transnational globalist faction that controls several countries. But I often think it's a psyop when I hear the blame being placed on Iran or China or Russia or any foreign adversary for that matter, when most likely what's going on is a psyop being done by our own government or intelligence agencies or deep state.
Okay. Well, before I do want to mention, we're going to link the live stream that was on Twitter last night, or on X last night. It is quite long. I think it's over 2 hours. I do want to point out that the last half, like around, I think I wrote it down, at around 1 hour 40 minutes, maybe a little bit before, when Sarah Adams starts talking, I really tuned out, because for those of you who watch Shawn Ryan, you might know who Sarah Adams is. She's big on pushing this whole, like, we need to be wary of ISIS and Al Qaeda, and that's the biggest threat. And this year, they're all gonna, start attacking the U.S. But I don't think that's really the true enemy. I think the true enemy is from within. So I do think that is a very valuable live, but the beginning part. So if you don't want to have to watch over 2 hours of people talking,
the last half
best
hour
stuff is in the first 30 minutes. I was really
the last half hour.
Part.
Yeah, the last half hour is a lot of information from a CIA alum who's talking about how we need to be afraid of the terrorist agencies like Al Qaeda and ISIS and so forth. But I guess what it's probably not common knowledge is that the CIA had created the Taliban and Al Qaeda and Al Nusra in Syria and ISIS even, and they've not only created them but trained them, funded them, protected them. And so when the CIA talks about what Al Qaeda is going to do, basically the CIA is just telling us what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. And that's why she knew everything, because they already have it planned. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really bummed that she was on that call, because I was like, oh, she's going to put her own 2 cents. And, I think what is also very amazing about this story is I followed Shawn Ryan for a long time, from before he was a huge podcaster. And I know a lot of people think he's the psy-op, and he is the psy-op, but I think he really wants to do the right thing. And I think he is in the process of waking up to what's really happening. I can kind of see it. I saw it in that interview. Also, he had his spiritual awakening a couple years ago, which I think allows you to see things in this way, because it happened to me very similarly. And so I'm very excited to see where he goes from here, because he's going to look back at these interviews and really put it into perspective. And I'm really excited to see how he comes back from this, because this is a huge thing, not just for the world, but for him as a person. And he has a huge platform. So I'm hoping he does the right thing and he's not influenced by others to, follow their narrative. And I think he will do the right thing. So we'll link all that in the description. Was there anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Oh, the new members, real quick.
Oh,
I'll put it up here. Kind of or our new members, Steve Martin and Joanne Somers. Didn't we have another one? Okay.
I just looked today, and those are the last 2 new
The
members
newest
that we
one.
have.
Okay, we're gonna do better at keeping up with that. I took a couple weeks off, so I apologize not being as active on my platforms. But today I'm back to work, and it's a new year, and we have a lot of really exciting things coming up soon. We have Dane Wigington on tomorrow, and we're trying to get Ashton Forbes on. But I think he's kind of blowing up in a way that we might not be at the top of the list. But we have a lot of really amazing things coming, and we're really excited to get that out to you guys. So with that, thank you all for being here, and we will see you all soon. Bye.